All right, here is Melba. She is from Bowness Soapworks. And don't be deceived, soap isn't all she does. She does all the things, as well as she's a mom to two very adorable little children. Your little boy, I think that we were like maybe married in another life or something. He's just such a sweet little
Oh my gosh.
soul.
When
Like I
you
want
left,
to
he
know
was
what
so
he's really
sad.
for.
Yeah. He was so sad when you left. Yeah.
I was sad when I left. Okay, so this isn't about that. Melba, tell us how you started your first ever business and give us some of the details of how that evolved into who you are today and all the things you're doing.
So my name is Melba. I'm the owner of Bowness Soapworks, Calgary's famous adventure soap company. And like you said, it's more than just soap. It's just people understand soap and people give me money for soap. But really, it began as a platform to inspire people to get outside, to do things, and also find a way to like connect my passions into something that's more financially viable for my family. Because I do all the sports, I forage, I make things, but I was working like this full-time job and then trying to teach people all these other things on the side. And I'm like, this is not sustainable because when do I find time for myself? Especially once the kids came, I'm like, how do I find time for myself to grow as an athlete, as an artist, if I'm working all day and then I'm teaching friends and family and like people that reach out to me to do all these things. Like I just picked like 10 pounds of wild mushrooms. Like I wish I could show you, but it's on my garden right now,
Oh, wow.
like on my patio drying. And it was one of those things where I'm like, I can't be everywhere and do everything all at once, right?
Mhm.
And so I made that transition to incorporate something tangible, like a bar of soap, and create adventure soap. So when people are like, why is it adventure soap? I'm like, well, I do all these things and I put all that intention and mindfulness and passion into the soap. And it's, the only adventure soap company I know of in Canada, if not, the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have a podcast and you have an incredible YouTube channel, and your social media is always just on fire with all the cool things you're doing. You've inspired, probably thousands and thousands of fempreneurs in the Calgary area to just do the thing, do the thing. Even your recent idea with this naked calendar. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I'm so excited. So, but like you're right, it's about doing the thing. We're all, especially as women, we're always so afraid that we're not perfect. So we don't even try. But the thing is, you have to do it and fail at it multiple times before you can be where you're at. And so the small business naked calendar, it's called the Bear It All calendar. I put out a call out for 12 small businesses, including myself. So I guess 11 small businesses to put themselves out there and be vulnerable like they do every day. Small businesses are vulnerable every day. So to put themselves out there and be naked with their products. And it's like a symbolism for what we do. Like we've sacrificed so much and we bear it all every day. So these 12 people that I selected over dozens, like there was dozens of applications. At first I was like, maybe it's going to be 12 months of Melba. But I had, it was slow going at the start, just like anything else. Uh, and as true to my belief, I don't ever lose confidence. So I'm like, worst comes to worst, there's just going to be 12 months of this, right? And then more applications came in. And on April 20th, we did the shoot. And a lot of these people, they've never been naked in front of people other than, their partners or, their, people that are very, very close to them, let alone now posing for a calendar to represent more than just their own business. It's to represent different bodies, different people, and knowing the face behind these small businesses and how there's something more than just, our business name or what we do. Like all the hard work and all the intention and passion we put into the things that we do is now laid out in these 12 months. And part of the proceeds, so 25% of the proceeds will go towards supporting youth at risk. That's very close to my heart because I think all of us could have been a youth at risk. And so I employ a lot of these kids, and that has just become something that's just a part of what I do now is I have these teenagers come work for me, and I learned that their programming was in need of funding. So, things like you and I, we went to, I don't know, like the museum or field trips growing up. Maybe we went to the water park or the zoo. Imagine that never happened and you just grew up, always running for your life and in fear, and these things that we think are normal, like going to the zoo, going to, learning about the natural center. These kids never had. So this is what that funding will go towards. So 25% of the proceeds will go towards Youth at Risk Explore program with Woods Homes. And then there's going to be a $500 draw for a small business, either someone who nominates. I'm still figuring that out. Like every calendar that's purchased will have like a code on it or something. And then you can nominate a small business, or if it's yourself, you can apply for the $500. And then there'll be a draw for that to grow your business, use it towards a market booth because it's expensive as a small business to do all these things. And then I'm hoping that if I sell a lot of these calendars, then I'll be able to donate an hour of programming to CKUA Radio, which supports the community in so many ways through arts and culture. So just trying to get the money and then give it to people.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. And you are an athlete. Tell us more about that.
So my biggest passion is climbing. I love rock climbing. Obviously with kids, you're not doing the things at the level that you might have been before, but that's okay because now I just train them to get to the point where they can get to my level. And we river surf, we whitewater kayak, we forage. I play pretty much all the sports except for lacrosse. And so I do all these things. And, we spend a lot of time out in the mountains exploring and trying to, teach our kids how to be safe throughout all this. And it's one of those things that's a very big part and a big aspect of my soap company. Every purchase, there's a portion of it that goes towards supporting these outdoor organizations. So like River Surf Alberta, the Alberta Whitewater Association, the Climbing Association of the Bow Valley. So I do my best to give back to the community because without funding and without them, I wouldn't be able to do the things that I do. So it kind of all comes in hand. I think sometimes when people meet me, they're they don't understand, but as soon as I say a few sentences, they're like, oh, this makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Like find what you love and then make it work so that, you're not doing that on the side, right?
Yeah. Find what you love and make it work. And it is work. It is work to find what you love and make it work. And you are working, you're doing a lot of things. And I'm sure there's moments when you feel frazzled and like you've maybe stretched yourself too thin. But I think fempreneurs who get there, they if they haven't been there before, they start to think they're doing something wrong. So can you say something to her if she's listening right now, where she's like maybe stretching herself pretty thin and she's like, if this is fempreneurship, I don't know if this is for me. Like, can you talk to her?
And that's something I actually get asked a lot. And one of the questions that people ask me probably at least once a month is, they say, oh, don't you ever think about quitting? And when someone says that to me, it blows my mind because I don't. Like, I work 110%, 200% in whatever job I was doing before, in my whole life. That's just how I am, how I was raised. And so I truly believe if you spend 10 years and you have to put in time, it's not a get rich quick scheme. It's called a get poor slow or whatever. But it's one of those things where if you spend 10 years in anything, if we wanted to make rulers and sell rulers and you spent 10 years doing it, guaranteed you will make more money than what you are doing now, whether it's working in healthcare, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a construction worker. If you spend 10 years working on something, there is no way you will not be successful. And it's sad for a lot of us because I feel like if we were given that head start, we would have been where we're at sooner. But you can't think like that. You just have to say, I'm going to start today. And it is overwhelming, and you have to build that community. So, without my small business friends, small business women who are at the same stage in life, maybe below you, maybe above you, but you need to find, that nest of people that are moving at the same rate as you are. And then you have people that inspire you, and then have people that you mentor, but you have to have a community. Otherwise it's not possible, right?
Yeah.
Or it's very lonely, and you grow a lot slower, and it's easier when you work together.
Yeah, absolutely. I do hear that a lot as well, that fempreneurs, when they start to feel that, like that overly stretched elastic band, And I always say to them, it's a phase. It's not going to last forever, but it's a phase that will come and go, and it will never disappear completely. If you're on the right path, you're going to feel overwhelmed and stretched at
Always.
times, but you need to be confident in that that's a sign that you are doing the work that you love and that it is work, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. And the more you get around women like Melba and myself, the less crazy you feel. You feel normal because we're all doing it, and
And
it's okay.
it's part of the process, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't realize it's part of the process, that's when you quit. And if you tell yourself it's going to take me 10 years, then when you hit the 3-year mark or the 5-year mark, you're kind of like, I'm on track. I'm doing okay. Right. But if you think it's going to happen overnight, like that's unrealistic. And maybe it isn't for you if you think it's going to happen overnight. Because if you
Right.
look at it, all the people who are successful, you talk to them, they're like, nothing happened till 7 years, till 8 years. So I say aim for 10. Aim for 10. And if it doesn't happen by 4 or 10 years, maybe it really isn't for you, right? But
Right.
you gotta aim big, right? Long game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we haven't talked about pottery yet. Can you tell us how pottery became a big part of what you do?
So pottery was actually the original dream. I know, you and I talked a little bit about this before a few weeks ago about, people see my account now, and if they've joined me in the last 4 years, they think that soap was the original thing and pottery is the new thing. But if you actually scroll for 10 minutes on my Instagram, you'll actually see, a post that says, sadly, the pottery dream is going to be put on hold for now because just didn't have the finances to open the studio. And you'll see actually, Bowness Soapworks was actually Seto Pottery before it was Bowness Soapworks. It's pretty neat. Like it's one of those little Easter egg things you can like scroll and look for it.
Ah,
So about in 2010, I did my very first pottery class, and like I've always been um, learning handmade ever since I was a kid. Like I taught myself how to sew, how to knit, how to quilt, how to embroider, how to cross stitch, all pretty much by the time I was like 5 or 6 years old is when it began, and I just kind of went into this spiral of handmade. And so by the time I hit, my mid 20s, I did my first pottery class in 2010, and I was so excited. It was like a 1-year waiting list, and I just knew that this was going to be the thing. And when I finally got in, I was like, I knew it. I'm addicted, and I love it, and I knew it before it even happened. Just there's no access, like there's no opportunity to just learn pottery, especially like what is that, 14 years ago? No, yeah. So 14 years ago, you can't just walk into a studio. I mean, there's a lot in Calgary now, but there was just no access. So I had to wait, 20 some years to get into a pottery studio. And then when that happened, I realized this is what I'm going to do. So I spent, 30, 40 hours a week on top of the 50 to 60 hours a week I was working to learn to become a potter. And so for those first 2 years, it was just time and time and time and time, practicing and practicing, squishing things and making the same thing over and over and over and over again. And then probably in 2012, I hit a point where I was like, all right, I'm going to start saving money. I'm going to open a studio someday because I've always loved teaching. I've been teaching for a long time, just different skills. And so I said, this is what I'm going to do. So every time I save the money, because it's like $15,000, $20,000, probably closer to 20 nowadays, to
mhm.
open a pottery studio. And I'm talking about, imagine your garage, dirty, cluttered, and then a pottery wheel and a kiln. That's what a $20,000 pottery studio looks like. It's not
Really?
like plants and what you see on Instagram of like beautiful plywood. No, it's like imagine your shed or your garage with a wheel and a kiln and the equipment to get started, and that's essentially a $20,000 pottery studio. So every time I save that money, something happened.
Mhm.
I was in Fort McMurray at the time, and so there was the fire, there was the flood, there was the recession. So people were losing jobs. So I'm like, well, do I pay for life or do I buy a pottery studio? And so I always made the adult choices to obviously spend the money on things that were more important. And then like your car broke down. So you got to spend 10, 15 grand on a used new car. And
Mhm.
then my spouse and I were in a car accident, and he was out of work for 2, 3 years, and he almost lost his hand.
Mhm.
So I was like, pottery studio? And then, probably not, probably pay the mortgage. And
Yeah.
then, so we had our mortgage, and then he broke his hand. And then we had a baby, so we had to buy a bigger house, and then we had another baby, and then the other car broke down. So it was like every 3 years or whatever, there was just something that took that money away from me, right? And it was okay. I just kind of put it back on the back burner, and I said, you know, it's okay. I'll just get there. And then probably about a year ago, I hit a point where it started getting really far away, because I've been dreaming about it and dreaming about it and talking about it and talking about it. And then it really hit me hard when I was like, maybe this isn't going to happen as soon as I think, because I always think next year. For about 10 years, I was like, next year. And then last year I was like, you know what, just stop and just keep moving forward and just stop saying next year. And then the soap company made enough money that I was able to actually buy the equipment, spend the 15-20 grand on the garage pottery studio. And I've been open since the fall to teach people workshops and to make pottery and do custom stuff. And it's exactly what I imagined. Like, the hard work paid off, right? And it took 10 years. And I'm at the beginning again, because it's been 8 years since I've touched a pottery wheel. So it's getting back on track and being okay that it's going to take a while to get back to the level that you were at, right?
Yeah. So many things. And your website is so awesome. I love how you have a membership. You have membership tiers. Tell us about that and how that came to be.
So, what was it? 2 years ago, as I started, making soap and people started giving me money for soap, I'm like, this is viable as a business, right? And because I'm still learning how small businesses work, and we have to plan around holidays, but 3 months in advance, if not more. I didn't know that. So here comes, 2 years ago, around November, I'm out of soap. I had no more soap. I was like, I should have been making soap, because soap takes 4 to 6 weeks to cure. I should have been making Christmas soap, like holiday soap, in the summer. But I had sold out, and then I'm like, well, time to make soap. But by then, the holiday rush would have been over. So I said, you know what? Now's the time I'm going to launch this subscription. I've always wanted like a subscription. So I hit a point where I'm like, there's no better time than now. So I got on my YouTube, and I started, because I thought about, what's that, Kickstarter. I thought about Kickstarter, but they take like 25%. They take a lot, and your margins as a small business is already negligible, right? So I said, I'm going to do my own Kickstarter. I'm going to go on YouTube. I'm going to go on Facebook, and I'm going to tell people, this is how I'm going to start. I have no soap, and I'm asking you to join my club, and I'm going to start making the soap once you join. So I pitched every day for about 2 months, saying, join the club. When you join the club, you get discounts to over 20 small businesses, and they're usually adventure or sustainability forward kind of businesses. And then you get to have a discount on a workshop with me every year. So I teach pottery, soap making, foraging, and wild basket making. And as my company grows, I'll offer more experiences. And so I kind of put myself out there, and I said, worst comes to worst, you're exactly where you started, right? No subscription, no soap club, just me with no soap for Christmas. Mm-hmm. So from November to December, I said, give the gift of soap club, and I asked my friends and family at first, and I said, hey, and you know what? People didn't even know I had a soap company. This is the first time I actually started telling my friends and family that I had a soap company, because I wanted to do it on my own, right? I wanted them to support me because they believed in the product and believed in the business, not because they were just like, oh, your little side hustle. Don't ever let anyone call your thing. Step one, don't you call your thing a side hustle.
Right.
Because soon as you call yourself a side hustle, then it makes it okay for other people to call your business a side hustle. So it's not a side hustle. This is my business. This is what I do, and I work freaking hard to do it. And so I put it out there, and next thing you know, people were joining the club, and I said, you can join, just for the 3 months, just for this one time. And then just so I can have the startup money to buy the boxes. Like, the boxes I had before were just these. This is my old logo. So this is the old box, and I hand stamped all these, folded them all, and then I invested enough money, and people don't realize, as a small business, to buy boxes, it's thousands of dollars, just boxes. And so now it's like a full-on subscription package, right? It's so cool, and you get like a little.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. So
look at you. I love it.
It's a big deal. I mean, I think when we're so used to all these big companies coming up with these like subscriptions or these club packages. I think people don't realize, like, for a small business to order like 1,000 of these inserts is expensive and it's a big deal. So to be able to order boxes and inserts and wrap it, and like it was just like a validation of how far you've come in your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I've got the subscription club, and it's a slow growing thing because people who love it sign right up, and when they believe in what I'm doing, they there's like a no brainer, right? You're getting quality handmade soap. I pick a lot of my own ingredients. A lot of the money goes back into the community. One of my small business friends, QM Boutique, she does sustainable beauty with eyelashes and stuff. She said to me, she's like, for every dollar you spend locally, $6 goes back into the community. And
Wow.
it's crazy because it's like, if you think about it, if I buy from you, then you're able to buy from someone else who's another neighbor, another small business owner, your family, your friend. And
Mm-hmm.
the gift just keeps on giving. So everyone who joins the club, who does a workshop, I always thank them for reinvesting in us, because it costs more, because I can't afford 50,000 boxes. I can only buy 500 at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So it still costs me a lot higher than if I bought, 50,000. If I bought 50,000 boxes, I could like just throw them into the wind, right?
Yeah.
But like every box is like an hourly wage, right? So you're like,
Yeah.
oh, don't damage the product, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's so cool that you've brought it that far. And another thing that I thought was really cool that you do, and I'm going to be doing this, it's on my to-do list, is the podcast. I know that you have a podcast and you put episodes out whenever you feel like it, which is kind of what I do too,
Hard,
and that's
right?
cool. And I don't want to force it and make it super rigid for myself. I like it to flow naturally. And when I meet someone I want to interview and I feel like their story needs to be on my podcast, then I make an episode. But your sponsorship thing, where it's like, I think it was like for $50 I can like get a bar of soap and you mentioned my podcast and your podcast
Totally.
or something. Like that
Yeah.
is so freaking cool.
And it works. I mean, it's not huge. I haven't made a ton of money, but it means that people who believe in what you're doing,
Yeah.
it's not a big deal for them to be like, and I'm getting a little bit out of it too. They get a shout out.
Mhm.
There's different tiers, right? So let's say you donate $5, then you probably just get a thank you. But if you donate 50, 100, then you get some soap, you get some
Yeah.
stickers. Now that I have pottery, I'll probably change those tiers a little bit, where it's like you donate $200, you'll get, a paragraph talking about your business. And all this comes from basically the model that I learned while I was learning pottery. So it all goes back to this being the definitive moment of me deciding I want to be a professional artist. And I know I've always wanted to do that, but to be able to admit it, especially growing up as an Asian person, to be
Mhm.
able to admit it and fully commit saying, I will be a full-time professional artist. So this happened when I started pottery and when I started listening to CKUA radio. So that's CKUA. And this is how they kind of model their publicly funded radio. They ask for help and for funding. And they say, if you like us, please donate to us.
Yeah.
And so for the last, 15 years listening to them, I started thinking like, this is amazing because it works, over and over again. You just keep asking, like, if you believe in what I'm doing, just donate a little bit of your time and I'll give back to you as much as I can. And I always have that in the back of my head whenever I make decisions. I mean, sometimes we forget, we make mistakes, right?
Mhm.
But for the most part, when I make a decision on maybe like a new marketing or like how am I going to promote something, I think, what is the best way that I can give back to the community, but also, support myself as an artist and a business, because you can't just give away free all the time. And I still do. I'm learning. I can't help it. We're just generous people, right? So giving away free product, that doesn't work. So we need to find a way where you're getting something, but I'm also getting something, and so everybody's winning. Because if I keep giving you free soap, I'm not going to have a business to hire people with disabilities, hire youth at risk. I'm not going to be able to give back to all my outdoor organizations. I'm not going to be able to inspire and mentor other small business women if I
Mhm.
just keep giving away free stuff. And it's not saying don't ever do it, but I think
Yeah.
um, always having like fall back to what your original plan is. And it's like to build community is what I want to do and to give back to the community. But I also need to find a way to sustain my household. So I'm not at that point yet where I can sustain my household financially. Like if something happened to my spouse, can I pay for the mortgage, the food, and the children and all that stuff by myself? At this point, the reality is no.
Yeah.
What I can pay for is I can rent a place on my own. I can pay for a car. I can still support my children, but I would have to sell my house.
Yeah.
And I'd have to sell our vehicles. But, so I guess I could sustain a household. Like I'd have to downsize. But my goal, and that's my baseline, is how can I support what I have now? And I'm working towards that, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, good for you. And you have the studio right in your garage. So you have workshops right at your house in the garage.
Yeah. So I have, so the pottery I have, I can teach up to 8 guests in my studio. So I've got 4 wheels and a kick wheel. So like an old fashioned kick wheel. It's really hard. It's fun, but at the same time, you're like, this is not realistic to make things on, like a lot of things. So I've got an old fashioned kick wheel, four pottery wheels, and then I teach like hand building. So things like we do an ornament making workshop. So this is an ornament. These are little mushrooms, and this is also a diffuser. So we do that at like local retailers. So I try to support other local retailers by hosting my workshops there. That way, when I bring people, they get some exposure. Maybe people do some shopping. And so it's a mutually beneficial relationship instead of going to like a big chain and saying, let's host a workshop here. It's like, they don't need our money. Okay. It's like, let's try to help another business that maybe needs a little bit more eyeballs on them. But yeah, if you're making like pottery wheel stuff, like that's what we would do in my studio. And then the soap making, I also do it at different local retailers. I have like 2 in Calgary that are like my main places. Greenbrier Market, they're a local refillery. So you can bring like a container and they do like skincare, house cleaners, home and bath, and self-care products. And then a vintage store in East Village. So I do workshops there, Wild Rabbit Vintage. And it's great because it's like my coworkers and my friends are what these small businesses are. Like you and I are coworkers, which is kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, we don't really have coworkers.
Right, exactly. We have to have each other because, so you are doing workshops both in your right in your home studio there in the garage, and are you taking the pottery wheels to different locations and doing?
Hand building, like I said, the ornaments, hand building, you don't need a wheel to make them. You kind of roll out the clay, you cut out stencils, and you build it together like Lego almost.
Okay.
And then once the pieces are completed at the venue, then I take them home and I fire them in my kiln and I bring them back to be picked up at a later date. Yeah. And so that gives people an option of maybe they don't want to do the wheel, or maybe if they have physical limitations, because the pottery wheel, you do need, like I've done a lot of adaptive teaching, so I have confidence I can teach almost anybody how to use a pottery wheel. If you don't even have hands, I'll figure it out, right?
Wow.
But there are people, maybe if they have arthritis or something, and they're like, well, I want to play with clay, but I don't want to get dirty, or I don't want to do the wheel. So I have hand building workshops where we build ornaments. You can build a mug out of hand building. It's just might not be as cylindrical, might be a little bit more organic, right? Which some people love that right now, right?
Yeah.
So a little bit more rustic. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. And one more thing I want you to talk about before we hop off, because this is something I'm definitely signing up for and coming to do with you this summer, which is the foraging. Are you still doing the group foraging things this summer?
Yeah. So right now, mushroom hunting season has just kicked off. Like I'm actually going to show you because
show me.
It's driving me crazy that I can't take you to my backyard right now.
Is your backyard where these mushrooms are growing?
No. So these are all the mushrooms I found today. I don't know how to make this not like, it's wild. Like my daughter and I were.
Wow.
How does it not reflect so much, right? Yeah. So we spent like an hour picking these.
What kind are those?
These are called verpas. So they're like early morels. They're so cute. Look at that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And so yeah, I picked her up from school. I was supposed to go back and do some pottery, but I'm like, this is now like mushrooms. It's not like, oh, we'll just try later. It's like, no, if you know they're there, you need to go get them. because if the weather changes, like if we get a hot streak, or I mean, rain is usually good, but let's say we get a hot streak for like 2-3 weeks, which we do in Calgary.
Yeah.
There's not going to be things growing. So I've learned over the years, like the foraging and the mushroom hunting started with me posting on my personal account and people just asking me. And, you know, for the most part, I don't mind sharing tips and tricks, but you hit a point where you feel really taken for granted,
Yeah.
that friends are only there for you when they want knowledge or something, but they don't give back. I don't mind if they give back, right? It's like, it's got to be reciprocated, right?
Yeah.
And so for years and years, because I've been mushroom hunting for almost a decade and foraging since I was a kid, like most of us, we all started picking berries as children. But I did like a survival training when I was in Air Cadets. And so I had a little bit more like advanced survival training when it comes to foraging. And so I think it was like 4 years ago where I hit a point where, like with everything that I do, take me climbing, take me paddling, take me foraging, take me basket making, and they don't show up. Or they show up late. Or they show up late and they don't say thank you. I mean, like, I don't expect you to like give me stuff, but like beer would be nice, or like be early and ready.
Yeah.
And not complaining. And so I hit a point where, and people ask me, take me, let me know when you go. And I always say, I go all the time.
Yeah.
You tell me when you want to go and we'll go. Right. So I just hit a point where people just, even now I get people messaging me and I just send them the link now. And I say, you can book.
Sign up.
You just sign up. Right. Like, and I'm so much happier because
Good.
Now people who really, really want to come and want to learn, they don't take advantage of my skills, because when they're family and they're friends and they've seen you for so many years, they just think it's always something there for you. Like you're just always available. And you're like, no, because I'm trying to make a living, but I have a family now and I want to spend time with them. And I don't want to be like teaching basic skills to someone for nothing. Right. And obviously there's a time and a place. Like I said, there's give and take. I mean, I have these really amazing friends who, you know, we spend time together. We play board games. They watch our kids and we cook for each other. So I take the mushroom hunting and it's not a big deal. Right. And then I have these other friends where this last couple days they're messaging me and I haven't heard from them since last year. Because they're like, hey, where's the mushies at? Oh, weird fireworks.
What is happening there?
I don't know.
How did you do that? Here, let me try.
Balloons. Hey.
Crazy.
Woo. That was weird. We're too old. We don't know how these things are.
Mysterious.
And so I started, now I just send people links, and if they want to come, then they come. And
yeah, and that's usually, oh, who's over there?
You come over here. Hi, sweetie. And so it's just, now I have more fun doing it because now people value me for my skill and my expertise, and they have fun. And then it just like a fair playing field. So that's what I would recommend too for, you know, female entrepreneurs, is that you have to know your worth. Like, it's not about being greedy or, you know, not being generous. Like, I'm so generous, but you're also worth something.
Yes.
So generosity is given to people who still see your worth. If you are generous to people who are just taking advantage of you, like the people who just like take free stuff, but don't share, don't post, don't tell their friends, don't write you a review, those people do not deserve generosity. And it's hard because it's like a learning thing, right? And we still make mistakes. Like I still get taken advantage of, but it's just less. I get taken advantage of less than I do, right? Yeah, and
I think you're right about the asking piece too. I think as fempreneurs, as women in general, we're not very good at asking. And I think, you know, and we don't have men or anyone to blame for this anymore, but especially not in Canada. But like, you know, you see, you know, a group of 10 female entrepreneurs and a group of 10 male entrepreneurs, and they all do the same things. The women are probably just charging less for the same things. And that's just because of the way we are made. And so we have to consciously level up, you know, our self-worth. We have to charge for things that we're good at. You've invested time and money into learning these skills. So why shouldn't you be, you know, signing up 6 or 8 women on a Saturday and charging them to take them out? Like, absolutely. And it's the universe telling you that, you know, when enough women are asking you to do it, it's like, well, then, yeah, I guess I'm going to create a structured thing and I'm going to do it. And if they pay me and don't show up, I don't care.
Exactly,
You know?
and there's a demand for it, and one of the things I always go back to is, and to ask myself my worth is, would that person have said that to a man? So, like you're
Yeah.
just saying, if there's a group of women and a
Yeah.
group of 10 men, the women, people would say, "Oh, that's a nice side hustle you have."
Right.
The men, they're business owners. That's weird, but it's
Yeah.
right? That's exactly what would happen is if you had 10 men and 10 women, people would be like, "Oh, you're a small business owner, amazing." But to the women, they're like, "Oh, your little hobby or side hustle." So
Yeah.
it's frustrating, and I think that's one of the things that I work really hard to, like, change the language. And
Mhm.
I never thought of myself as like a what do you call it? Like, ooh, what that word? Like a female advocate, right? You know that word that I'm saying. Um, but I'm like a humanist. Like I'm
Yeah.
not a feminist. I'm not a feminist.
Yeah, no, because
But I
it's women looking at the group of women and the group of men saying the same thing. It's not just the men looking at the group, two groups saying the same thing.
yeah.
So it's yeah, it's something as women, if we don't like it, we need to correct it. And we're not going to correct it by saying bad things about men. We're going to correct it by how we act, how we speak, how we treat female entrepreneurs.
How we treat ourselves too, right? Step one.
Yeah.
So even this weekend, and it bugs me, and it's not like they intended to do this, but it's just the way society has ch- changed, like the language. It's just how it is. So I went on this paddling trip, and it's our third year doing it, and I've become like a sponsor for these kayakers. It's like a festival where kayakers go at the very beginning of the season, and they just hang out and paddle together, right? So I was trying to find a ride because my spouse comes, my kids come, and I eventually found this ride so that we can all paddle together. And they were saying like, "Oh, what about your husband?" I was like, you know, every I'm actually the one that they come for me every year. My
Hmm.
husband drives here,
Hmm.
we bring the kids, he hangs out with the kids, and I paddle. And
Yeah.
everyone was just like, you you're the one who wants to do this. And I was like, why is that weird? And it drives me crazy because like it's bugged me for a long time. And like I'm so happy my spouse is like super comfortable in his skin. Like I ride the motorcycle. I'm the one who climbs harder. I mean, he's super athletic too, but there's certain things that I'm better at. But because he's the man and he's a white male, people
Hmm.
always go, "Is that your motorcycle?" I mean, even his brother said to him when we were climbing, "Oh, this kills me." And a few years ago, we took him climbing to the indoor gym, and one of the guys was climbing, and he's like, "Oh, you guys climb all the way up there?" And we're like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, you probably can't even get to the top because these guys are struggling." And I'm like, "You realize I'm stronger than all these men. I'm actually the strongest." But the fact that he said that was just like, ugh. And he wasn't trying to be offensive, but it just naturally came to him that if they can't do it, you obviously couldn't. And I'm like,
Yeah.
those words came out of your mouth. I want to kick you.
Yeah. It's crazy. It is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it is. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to say to any of that other than we have a long ways to go, but we also like we have really no um there's nothing holding us back really, right? People saying things like that, they're wrong. That's what it comes
And
down
we
to.
have to use
They're
it as
wrong.
a teaching moment to be like, actually,
Yeah.
no,
Hello.
it drives me nuts because I'm not, even though I come off as A type and you are too, we're like friendly A types.
Yeah.
I'm not the person that needs to like prove myself because I know I'm at the point where I know what I'm capable of.
Yeah.
But in those situations, you're like, oh, like, do I have to make a statement and prove to people how like strong we are? And it bugs me. Like even on the paddling weekend, I joined this group of older men because they were trying to make groups for like the second day, and they were like, get yourselves in groups of 5. And being a good leader also means you're a good follower. So I let people, pick their groups, and I'm happy to be the leftover. When you're a kid, you're always sad to be the leftover, but I'm at the point where I'm okay to be the leftover. I don't really mind.
Yeah.
And so here I am, the leftover, and I see these older gentlemen. They're in like 50s and 60s, and I was like, do you mind if I join your group? And you can just tell they were like, oh, like we got to like take this girl. Like what if we have to like save her, right? But you could tell, right? There's just this look of like, sure.
Oh boy.
sure. And I said, like, I don't have to join your group, but you guys have 4 or whatever, you need 5. And they're like, yeah, you can join us. I'm like, oh my God. And then in the end, except for maybe 1 or 2 of them, I was a stronger paddler.
Yeah.
And like I've been lifeguarding for over 20 years. I've got my EMT. I have my survival instructor. Like, if anything, I was in the military, you want me on your team to save your life.
Yeah.
So, but it's just because I'm the small Asian female, and then you have these like white males that are 60 years old, and you're just like, oh, it's just in their face. It's not like, oh, you're just being sensitive. And you're like, no, because if anybody else came up that wasn't an Asian female, they probably would have been like, come on in. Like, I don't know.
Well, good for you for persevering through all of those uncomfortable looks and reactions and even words sometimes. Yeah, it's hard. And it is hard, I think, when you live in that mental state, as I think we both have, of I can do anything and I will do anything I want to do. And gender never even comes up in your own mind. Like, you never ever think that
when it
anything's
does, you're like,
you're a woman.
You're like horrified because
and then someone says something like that, and you literally like you think about all those movies where they highlight all those horrible situations where this is happening, because it feels like something from the movies for me, because of the era I've grown up in, and just whatever, and just the fact that I've, like, I don't know, I guess just pushed people like that out of my life really successfully, and then you get that slap in the face every once in a while, and you're like, whoa, this is still happening. Like,
it's still a thing. You have no idea because we're in our little bubble of happy people who are like, you got this, you're amazing. And then one day you're like, what? You still think like that? Like, it is weird. Right?
It's like when I see people smoking cigarettes, I'm like, are you people still smoking?
Like people who are basically younger than 40 and smoking. You're like, we have studies.
Yeah.
We have like physical jars of lungs to show you how bad this is for you.
It blows my mind.
You're like a 13-year-old smoking, and you're like a 20-year-old smoking. You're like, what's happening?
Yeah. Well, I know you have a million things to be doing other than talking to me all day, even though I could literally talk to you for hours. But thank you for this. It's been wonderful, and I look forward to interviewing you again, 6 months or a year from now, to get an update on everything. And
we'll do it while we're doing pottery. It'll be fun.
Yeah, and we are going to do some things like that together. I'm not one of those people that says things and doesn't do it. I am fully doing it, and I usually bring a crew with me too, which is nice.
Yay. I love it.
Yeah,
new friends for us, right?
Yes, absolutely. And now that I know you, I met you at the outdoor show in Calgary, and now that I know you, I realize all these other people that know you too that I know.
Yeah.
So we were eventually going to meet. So
there's so much power behind that too, because now there's the credibility built for our clients as well. Because I was telling someone the other day about how, like, why it's so important to share network, and they're like, oh, but why would you be friends with other soap makers or other people? I'm like, because if someone's like, oh my God, I know Lindsay and I know Melba, all of a sudden we both got elevated, because if they like both of us, then now they're more invested in whatever it is that we're doing, versus like, I don't know, I just saw that person on the street. Like, who are they? But as soon as you have multiple people kind of going, wow, we're in the same bubble, we're all cool people. So then now we become this internal like referral network. And so that we can all thrive. I don't want to survive doing my business. I want to thrive, right?
Yeah.
And like spend time with my family. Like, that's always the number one, is if I'm working more than I'm with my family, then I'm doing it wrong.
Definitely. I have one final question for you, and then we are going to wrap it up. It's, what would you tell your 10-year younger self?
10 year, how old am I now? I'm 39. This is 29. Oh my God. 10-year younger self. I would say do it sooner. Like, even though I've always been someone who's done things as soon as I could, I would still say do it sooner, right?
Okay.
And just do it. Do it sooner.
Okay. Cool. So remove any roadblocks faster than you think you can.
Yes. Yeah. And I feel like I'm been really good at that, but I think everyone can just do it sooner. Whatever it is, do it now instead of like tomorrow. Like, I'm the type of person just like you, when you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And now even sooner than when you were going to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great. Do it sooner and do it now. Love it. All right. Well, you can find Melba at Bowness Soapworks on Instagram. Her website is bownesssoapworks.com.
Those
She's
fireworks.
really very amazing. You should listen to her podcast. It's awesome. And if you're in the Calgary area, yeah, gather a group of women, gather your girlfriends and their kids and your kids, and do a pottery workshop or do a soap making workshop or go forage for mushrooms with her. She's got all the knowledge and all the skills, and you should probably get her soap membership, because I don't know, I use soap every day usually,
Yeah.
unless I'm
And it
really
ships every 3 months. So soap comes to your door, handmade soap, and you don't even have to worry about like going to find it, right?
Yes, absolutely. Support a local business. All right. Thank you, Melba. Have a great rest of your